No. Here's something shocking. Microsoft tends to rename things. I know, hold on to your hats here.
And welcome to Power Platform Boost podcast. My name is Birkelback and I'm here with Nick Dolman, and this is your timely boost of Power Platform news. In this episode, we will talk about new stuff that we learned this week. But before we do that, we have a special segment called First Time.
And this is our first episode of the podcast, so I want to talk a little bit about first times. Okay, get your mind out of the gutter. This is going to be, let's also make this clear, this is going to be a family-friendly podcast. So what I meant was, this is the first episode, I want to talk about the first apps or the first things you ever built using technology. And I'm also interested in hearing from our listeners, what are the things that they built for the first time. So, Ulrika, what, in terms of technology, software, or things like that, what's the first thing that you built?
Well, yeah, I actually created my first website when I was like 14. And that's not so long ago because I'm a young woman. But still, it was back in the 90s. My dad used to work at this telecom company. So we had internet really early. And he just taught me how to put HTML together. And then inline styling, of course. That was all we ever had. Started with this black canvas. Just put all the colors in the world, all the neon colors you can imagine on that page. Linking through to other sites. I don't really know or remember what it was about, but it was the most horrible thing you'll ever see, but it was so much fun and actually kind of started my journey as to where I'm at. I'm still doing that. It just looks better. I think in essence, I feel like I'm still doing that same thing, putting stuff on the web and just linking the world together. That's so really cool. What about you?
Will we be able to take that URL of that first website? We'll put that in our show notes, right?
Yeah, if we can find it. Actually, there's a service somewhere where it's the internet archives of, have that kind of snapshot of all pages and sites on the internet ever created. Maybe we can find it on that. That would be so cool. Awesome. So what's your first time? What's your first thing?
Yeah, right. Yeah, family show. Gotcha. So this goes back to before, the internet was a thing, but not publicly available or whatever. So we're going back into, I'm a couple years older than you.
You're dating yourself very, very well. You were there when CRM was patched, and you were there before the internet went live.
It's true.
Right.
I remember the go live day. It was a big party. No. So I was, my first computer was the Commodore. No worries. My first computer was the Commodore 64. So, and for those of you who see my Twitter tagline, Ready XRM, and the Ready XRM blog, the Commodore 64. When you plugged it in your TV, I had a TV hooked up to mine. It would come up with the Ready was the prompt and the little flashing cursor, and you could write software using. At that time, it was BASIC and also assembler. So my first program I wrote in BASIC, and I was a bit of a nerd in high school, and I was really, it's not really a nerdy thing. I was really big into professional wrestling, Hulk Hogan, Andre the Giant, Ric Flair, all these, this was my thing on Saturdays. It was to watch wrestling. So what I actually built was sort of a kind of a game on the Commodore 64. It was all text-based, but I called it a wrestling simulator. So what this program would do, it would prompt you, what's the name of the first wrestler? You could put in the name like Hulk Hogan, and then you put in what's the other one, like Andre the Giant, and you would have to put in like stats, like what's their strength, what's their agility, what's their endurance, those types of things. And then the computer would actually go through and simulate the wrestling match. Like, Hulk Hogan slams Andre the Giant, throws Hogan into the ropes, and all of these things. And then eventually the computer would simulate, and there would be a winner and a loser of the particular wrestling match. And I wrote that probably when I was like 14 or 15 or something like that. That's so long ago.
That's
yeah,
so
that was
cool.
my first app.
And then someone picked it up and it became Tekken, that we know, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Remember
right.
Tekken, the game fight where you can just push all the buttons at once and then you would win, right? That's how I play Tekken. I love it. It's amazing. Sounds exactly like your thing, right?
Yeah, well, almost. Yeah, it was. Of course, at that time, I had all these grand plans. I was going to rewrite this, have graphics, and all of this other things. And here we are, a couple years later. That still quite hasn't happened yet. So I think this is probably something I should do in a Canvas app or something like that. This sounds like something.
Oh yeah, that would be so cool.
That could be done in the Power Platform. But speaking of Power Platform,
you should have sold the idea, and you should have become rich.
I could have had a whole different life instead of working in Power Platform.
Yeah.
Could have been coulda, shoulda, maybe. But
really
yeah, so
appreciate
speaking of the Power Platform, this is what the podcast is about. We're going to talk about a couple things that we looked at this week, and do you want to start with something that you want to talk about regarding some of the stuff around the Power Platform?
Yeah, absolutely. I picked up something, another podcast. I don't know if that's a smart idea or not to send people off to other podcasts. So listen to our episode first, and then you can go listen to the Low Code Approach podcast, which is really, really cool. The last episode, they're talking about default environments in the Power Platform. And for someone like me, I'm not a Dynamics developer at all. I have a strange relationship with the default environment, and I know people are renaming it to this will be deleted is the name of the default environment, because they don't want people to think that they can build stuff in there and then it will live on forever. So for me, I'm not really sure how to use it, why it's there, and then these two guys, Ken and Hazim, are talking about the default environment and why are people freaking out. It is the environment that comes out of the box. It's open for all makers, and it is enabling the low coders to actually get started. So if we didn't have the default environment, you would need some IT guy to set this up for you up front and kind of ask permission or, not ask in advance kind of thing. You would just be able to get started without asking anyone. All the permissions that are there, you have access to the premium connectors and all the things that you want, and it enables people to start playing with it. So from a low code perspective, I think it's a brilliant idea. And then I appreciate the difficulty if you flip that and see that from the IT admin point of view. I do get that it's challenging to have this environment when everyone could just go rogue and create whatever they want. But you need to also appreciate that this is the enabler that you need in order to get this through into your company. So that is one thing. And also they touched upon something that I didn't know about, which is the onboarding experience for Power Platform. So with the COE Starter Kit, you can create a flow that will send an email to anyone that signs up or goes into Maker Studio, which say, hello, this is our policy, this is how we work with the Power Platform. But now you can also enable a custom experience for those who log into make.powerapps.com for the first time. And I didn't know that, so I thought that was brilliant in terms of bringing new people on board to the Power Platform and to give people that kind of understanding of what it is and what it's for and what kind of restrictions you will come across when you use this platform. So I just love that. And of course, links to that podcast will be in the show notes for everyone to grab. But that's really, so the Low Code Approach podcast is really something to watch.
That's awesome. I got to check that out. And I'm probably guilty of one of these people that rename the default environment like do not use, stay clear. I think I've also renamed personal productivity. But no, it's good. It's good to have these different perspectives on things. So that's really interesting. That's cool. So something that I played with this week, it actually became GA is the Power Platform pipelines. And I've always been an advocate for doing ALM, even for small implementations. So a lot of times in enterprise projects, of course, there's Azure DevOps, there's GitHub Actions. The Power Platform has a lot of these, the GitHub Actions and the Power Platform Azure DevOps pipeline tools for building a fully fledged ALM system. And if you're in an enterprise project where you have multiple developers and different staging environments for testing and QA and everything, definitely that is the route you need to take. You need to invest the time. And most organizations, they'll invest the time to get the proper ALM in place. And the great thing is ALM has exploded over the last couple of years, especially in like Dynamics 365 and the Power Platform. When I kind of first started with it, it was kind of piecing together PowerShell scripts. There were some community tools that could help you out, but there was a lot of, I think there's still some challenges involved, but there is quite a bit of effort to set up a proper, ALM system. But then you come to the smaller projects where you, of course, you have a lot of limited budgets. You have, you're really just trying to get the value in there as a consultant trying to build out a project, but you still want to maintain a proper ALM process in terms of having either a dev or a sandbox environment, ideally a test environment, and then before you move everything over to production. But this can add, to set up an ALM system, could add a lot of overhead to probably a lot of these projects that I've worked with on the smaller side are already pretty tight on budget because they're smaller organizations and things like this. So for me in the past, I've put together a few things, again, with like PowerShell scripts using Power Automate, I even built like a Canvas app that could actually move solutions over just to kind of help the makers and things like this to be able to facilitate that. Now we have this thing called Power Platform Pipelines, and it's great because it's probably took me probably about an hour or so to set up. You need to create, basically the gist of it is you create another environment that's going to be the host. You'll have your dev environment, you'll have a test environment, a production environment. You don't even need the test environment. You could kind of go straight to dev to production if that's your thing. And you set it up, you set up your pipelines, you set your destination, your target and your destinations. And then once this is all configured, then you're directly working within the solution. There'll be a little rocket ship on the side thing. You click on that, and then you can deploy your solution. It will deploy it to production as managed. And we don't need to get into the whole unmanaged, managed debate.
Please.
That's been talked
No.
multiple times. So it will be moved over as managed, but it'll also present you with a screen to be able to do your connections properly and things like this. So all in one screen, which is great because I found in the past, especially, working with Power Platform, I'm going to download the solution and then it's like, okay, it's taking a while to download. Then I go do something else, but then I come back and like, okay, did I download the solution? Did I publish the solution? Where's it at? Where's that file again? That's okay in my downloads folder. Is that the latest one? This will take care of a lot of these little things, and you can press the button. You can you can still minimize the screen because it will take a few cycles, but you can go back and it will say last solution deployed. It gives a timestamp. And the other cool thing, it will keep a copy of that managed solution as a file, in a file column in a record in this app, this pipelines app that you can use that's going to be in that host environment. So you have a whole record of all the different versions of your managed solution. So it's really cool. It worked great. I know on the roadmap, they have a lot more things. I'd love to be able to see if this could be scheduled so I could deploy, like solutions at a scheduled time. Like everybody, you pull the developer stuff into the test environment or the staging environment, like at midnight kind of thing. I'd also like to be able, I would love it for also to keep a copy of the unmanaged solution as well. Just in the event your dev environment gets hosed, you still have that unmanaged solution that you can fall back to, and kept in a sort of safe place within that Dataverse environment, which of course gets backed up nightly as well. So it's for anybody who hasn't taken a look yet, definitely check it out. Microsoft has some pretty good documentation on that. Obviously, I'm a big fan, and so that was something that I tried out this week and. With pipelines.
Yeah, I love that too. I actually played with it a little as well. And for me as a non-developer, I always needed a developer to set up those pipelines in Azure because always just one step away from where I was comfortable, and I would always make mistakes. It would take me forever. So for this to be a low code kind of tool to enable that ALM process, I love it. And I can't, and it's always, it's easy now, or it's simple, but of course it's going to be evolving over time. And I imagine also that these probably it's some kind of process or automation behind the scenes, right? If we could have access to those and we can build our own kind of workflows around that, then we would be able to download that unmanaged solution ourselves and create kind of a backstory or another branch of something else happening at the same time as this pipeline would run. Or just the imagination is running wild on the use cases for this once we get that.
Right, they do in the roadmap the ability to do like pre and post stuff, like functions or things like that. You'd be able to like customize yourself. So I'm thinking, even things like spinning. Like let's say you want to do data. Like test data is always one of these things that no one spends the time on. But I know I've written flows in the past that could generate test data and like update the date. So if you could rehydrate the test data in your test environments every time you deploy a solution. So your testers have fresh data and data that has updated dates and things like that. Like those are just, you're right. The mind just begins to spin of all the things we could potentially do down the road. So definitely going to be keeping an eye on that.
Absolutely.
So
that's fantastic.
you had,
I love when
you found...
Sorry, the audio is lagging a bit. Sorry about that. Yeah. I was looking into another thing as well, code components for Power Apps grids. So this is Power Apps Canvas app world, PCF controls. I saw this video from Diana Birkelback, a German MVP, which created this PCF control. And she actually in the video as well explained the PCF controls, what it is, how it's built up, the manifest and all the different pieces that you would need to use PCFs and upload it into your solution, and also how to do that. So I love when people, bring you in from start to finish, take you through all the steps you need to take. So for me, non-developer, then I can just do what she does and it works kind of thing. I love that. And also the Power Apps grid is a PCF control in of its own. And if you wanted to create, for instance, a list experience, you would have to build that from scratch if you wanted to have your own PCF control. This Power Apps grid component allows you to build on top of the view experience or the view control that you already have. So the filtering would work, the search would work, all that crazy stuff that you're used to, the basics would work, and then you could add your own code on top. Now, she does amazing things with it. For instance, she enables offline calculations of a datetime field, which is not possible with the view component, offline capability in Dataverse. It wouldn't work. But by using this component, she's able to do that in offline mode, as well as she has a view with, for instance, accounts. So account would be one row in a view, right? You would have multiple people associated with that account. She actually shows that many-to-many relationship. She shows all the people associated with that account in that view. And that just blows my mind. If, the use cases, once you have something like that, it's, and that's always something you have to say to the customer, oh, that's not possible. Yeah, now it's possible. I love that. And lastly, and this is, I really enjoy this. She created a drag and drop experience. We could drag and drop different rows in the list. And it's not supported. It's an unsupported hack that you had to do in order for that list to refresh, to show the order that you created. And I just love when you have, so this is the session that she did at some event, and you present something and it's an unsupported hack. That just, makes my day. I love it. So really kudos to Diana for doing that. It's amazing.
Yeah, she's amazing. I love her stuff. She has a lot of great content on PCF for, code components, I think is the official, that is what we're supposed to call them these days.
Sorry.
No, don't worry about it.
My bad.
So, here's something shocking. Microsoft tends to rename things. I know, hold on to your hats here. But no, it's really cool. And I love I think That would make a great conference session, Unsupported Hacks. And that's just the title.
Yeah.
I'm sure we get a packed room.
Amazing. Someone should. Definitely. I would go to
an
that.
email from support. So the other thing, speaking of stuff that Microsoft uses from inspiration from the community, there was an interesting article that was posted this week from the Fast Track team about identity strategy for Power Pages, and a lot of the content and the diagrams. This is it's a long blog post, and it's a really deep dive into setting up identity strategy for Power Pages. And that is one thing that I think everybody, I mean, you probably do this in your projects. I've always said this in my projects as well. The local authentication for Power Pages, it works great out of the box. You provision a portal. It just works. It's simple as that. However, from a security perspective and just a user identity management perspective, once you get to that production level, you really should be using an external identity provider for your Power Pages deployments. Now, there are some wizards and some good instructions on how to do that, but of course, there's a lot of uniqueness. There's certain requirements that may need to be done when setting up these other providers, especially if you go a little bit off the beaten path away from like the pure Microsoft ones. You're tying into LinkedIn or some of the other providers as well. So what's interesting about this particular article, this was inspired by a lot of content and even some of the diagrams from a presentation done by MVP Yannick Reekmans. Yannick is a friend of ours. He's an MVP out of Belgium. He also does a lot of amazing stuff. And what's interesting about this particular article and Yannick's presentation was I was sitting with Yannick at Scottish Summit last year at lunch. There was a few other of us there, and he was describing one of the projects he was working on, some of the challenges that he ran into with identity providers and some of the workarounds that he did. I'm not sure if they fall under unsupported hacks, but we'll have to follow up with him on that. But he was kind of, I said, this sounds really cool. Like you should do like a presentation, do a video and stuff like this. And he said, yeah, I've submitted presentations on identity providers for Power Apps portals and Power Pages to a lot of the conferences. They're just not getting picked up. And I'm like, okay, that's, keep doing it. You never know. So he did this. He put in a presentation for the Microsoft Power Platform Conference. Sure enough, it got picked up. I was at his session. It was in Orlando last year. It was a packed room. His presentation was amazing. I was taking a lot of notes that I thought, okay, we need to incorporate some of these ideas and concepts back into Microsoft Docs. That's still coming. The list is pretty huge with a lot of things. But eventually one of the other folks on the Fast Track team, and I'm going to bring up his name here, Hari Yarapotina. He's on the Fast Track team, really good guy. He wrote a lot of this information up, taking a lot of the information using Yannick's presentation for a lot of this information, kind of put a little bit of his own spin and his own experiences on it. We'll put this in the show notes, but if you're working on a Power Pages project and you need to actually get your head wrapped around the identity providers, definitely check that out and go through this. And then also hopefully Yannick will be able to present that same session again at some other future conferences. And I recommend taking that in as well. Just the amount of information that's out there is just amazing. So that was an interesting path of how this information is. And I think we're going to be talking about events, and a lot of them have called for submissions up. And if you're out there, whether you're a new speaker or someone seasoned and you think, okay, this session, this kind of a weak idea, or no one's going to be interested in this session, you never know. Definitely put in these session ideas. Just because you think you're the only one to solve this problem, I can guarantee you there's probably 10, 20, 30 people that are running into the same problem and would love to get that kind of information. So definitely go and do it. Like, so they'll say no, then just move it on to the next presentation, or the next session, the next conference, and kind of getting your foot in the door. And sharing is caring.
Oh yeah, definitely. And that goes for blog posts as well. I can't remember how many times last week and today, Monday as well. that I have said, you please put that in a blog post. People create so many cool solutions to problems we don't even think that we're having. I mean, if you can solve something for one person, then it's worth the time putting it into a blog post.
Absolutely.
And old MVP once told me, if you have to document something, document it in a blog post. It takes the same amount of hours, and just do the screenshots and explain it to you as you would document it for a customer, and then you're good to go. It's a blog post.
Yeah, that was a smart MVP
tip
who
of the
told
day.
you that.
Yeah, can't remember who it was. Well then, and if you have a tip of the week, dear listener, then please send it to us. It could be as small as, did you know that there's a site setting in Power Pages where you can set your date format, and it will be that date format throughout the portal. I learned that from Franco Musso last week, and I've been doing portals for 6 years. Something like that. If you have a small tip of the week, then please send it to us, and we'll share it on the next episode of this podcast.
Right. And big fan of Franco's work too. Nice. We have to give him a good shout out.
Yeah. And speaking about putting something in blog posts, let's put a pin in that.
More on that later.
Yes, definitely. Hello, Franco. You know what I'm talking about. So, moving on, we need to talk about upcoming events. Now, I know that we're running short on time. Nick and I are terrible at time management. You will learn this about us.
Yes, our 30-minute podcast.
We are trying to keep this. We're trying to keep this at the time management. We have tried. We will make us better and stronger effort.
We'll get there.
Next time.
We'll get there.
But we need to talk about events. Yes, definitely. So, events coming up: Iberian Technology Summit, 28th to 30th of April. Nick is delivering a Power Pages workshop. Is that introductory to Power Pages?
But it's a full day workshop where if you know nothing about Power Pages, or even if you know a little bit, we're going to be basically taking your knowledge that you already have on the Power Platform, or even if you don't, if you're new in career and you want to learn about it, we're going to go through the entire process. We'll work together. We'll build out a Power Pages site using the regular components, and then we'll dive into. It's not going to be a full developer session, but we'll dive into some of those extensions that you can do, building out Power Pages by building custom web templates, getting it a little bit to liquid. We will talk a little bit about authentication, like I mentioned earlier, plus a little bit of styling. But again, I'll probably redirect you to friends that know styling in Power Pages really well. And it's just, for me, I've taught this class multiple times around the world, and the feedback I've gotten is very positive for folks that are new to Power Pages, or as I think, both you and I have worked in consulting companies, and this is how it typically is. It's all of a sudden a particular technology lands on your lap. Okay, you need to figure out how Power Automate works, because we're going to need it for this project. And you sometimes just have to be a little bit ahead of the customer. But this is a great way to get experience. For me, the reason why I put this course together was this was the course or workshop that I wish I had when I started portals. Way back when. It just, kind of cleared up for me. It's just really kind of putting a lot of these concepts together in such a way that it's also fun, because as you go through the class, we have labs where you build out, and at the end of the day, you're going to have a fully functioning Power Pages site that you can use to enhance or take those lessons learned and continue on from that. So I am going to be delivering that at the Iberian Summit as a pre-day. There is a fee associated with that, because as much as I wish I could travel the world, I do need to kind of pay for things to make that happen. And if you can't...
So you don't travel for free?
I wish.
By now you should. The world should just carry you from one place to another just because world traveler.
Yeah, it's around the world in 80 sessions. But if you can't make it to the Iberian Summit in the end of April, I will also be delivering that same workshop again in the fall at Nordic Summit. So probably be twice this year, I'll be doing that. So if you, like I said, can't make it to the Iberian Summit, maybe you can make it to the Nordic Summit and plan for that. We'd love to see you there, and love to be able to deliver that class on portals. So,
Absolutely.
and then the other
then
one,
also, just wanted to mention, so Nordic Summit, it's in the fall, and call for speakers opened just a couple of days ago. So if you have a small speaker, and like we say in Norwegian, if you have a speaker in your stomach, I don't know how to translate it into English. It sounded really stupid.
no,
But
that's
then
cool.
if you
I get
are
it.
an aspiring speaker,
Yeah.
right, if you're an aspiring speaker, you want to, or you have some content you want to share to the world, then call for speakers is open. And of course, I don't know if people know this, but you can you can collaborate on sessions. So we have actually submitted a couple of collaborations this year as well. And I'm also going to submit a couple of collaborations for Nordic Summit with other peoples of the community. It's a great way to create a dynamic on stage and as well bring different perspectives into an issue or a problem. And then it's kind of having someone to support you up there if you're anxious or new to this kind of stuff. It's really nice. So just encourage people to submit your sessions and do it with someone you trust and someone you like and have a good dynamic with. That's second tip of the week.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, and then there's other conferences coming up as well. European Power Platform Conference, that's June 22nd, 24th. I'll also be delivering a workshop with Ahmed Najjar and that's more of a Power Platform developer session workshop. I'll also have a session, again, my go-to crash course in Power Pages, which is really, it's almost like that full day class boiled down to 45 minutes. But again, if you're fast and want to follow along, and you provisioned a site ahead of time, you can go with that. We talked about Nordic Summit, and Ulrika, you have a couple things coming up as well.
Yes, and also if you want to hear Nick do that full day workshop that he also does in 45 minutes, done in 20 minutes, join us at Portal Lunch. This is a Norwegian meetup that I host once a quarter. And the next one is May 10th, where Nick would do a Power Pages 101. And we have a guy called Gaute, which is the guy that won head-to-head challenge with Power Pages at Arctic Cloud Developer Challenge Hackathon. He will come to share his insights and how it is to actually learn Power Pages from scratch. And this is the developer that we talked about earlier that had Nick by his side once he started to learn this at the hackathon. So that's great insights from him as the challenges that he faced and how to solve them. And also we will have Franco Musso on to show a customer project that we're working on currently to see real use cases for Power Pages. So this is a Power Pages meetup, usually done in Norwegian, but this one in May is in English. So if you want to join, then you'll find it on the community site for Power Pages. And then we also have this March 15th, so next week, we have it's the same kind of setup, but it's for Power Platform in general, called Power Meetup. This time we'll be live from Microsoft headquarters in Norway. It's also in Norwegian, but it's for the Norwegian community as well. And then at Dynamics User Group Norway, the May 30th, I'll do a 4-hour workshop, which is called Better Together, where actually we will do, within 4 hours, create data in Dataverse, use Power Automate for automation, create a Canvas app, a model-driven app, a portal, and a Power BI report for attendee check-in kind of solution where you want to have someone sign up for your event, send them an email with a QR code, scan it at the door kind of solution to show how the products in Power Platform work so seamlessly together, just to have that kind of experience. So yeah, a lot of training and a lot of events coming this spring. And all, of course, for us at least, leading up to the European Power Platform Conference in June, which I'm really, really looking forward to going to Dublin, isn't it?
Yeah, Dublin. It's going to be
awesome.
That's going to be a good time for sure. Awesome. So
definitely, yeah.
Yeah, so we didn't do too bad. We're running about 50 minutes, and I think there's a few minutes we can shave off at the beginning. But it's all good. It's all, you know what?
Shave off about half an hour.
No, it's all good because like a lot of like TV shows, sometimes the pilot is always like a 2-hour special, right? So, or, double, like I read comic books, double-sized first issue type thing, right? So this is this is what we got for today.
Whatever we need to tell ourselves.
Right. So, but just, yeah. But we do hope to, like, our initial plan is to do this every 2 weeks on a regular schedule, where we'll see where that evolves to, whether we increase or decrease the timing of that. Because we obviously have a lot to talk about, and let's continue to, because there's new things happening all the time. And for the rest, I think this is really cool. So thanks, Ulrika, for joining me today in having us put together this podcast.
Thank you, Nick, for bringing me along and having me be a part of this podcast. It's really a dream come true for me. And then for all you guys back at home, check out the show notes. We have a website. We have all the socials. If you want to reach us, please do. We want to hear your experiences and your comments on the stuff that we shared. And if you have something you want us to share, then we're up for that as well. Have a great weekend or week. Sorry, weekend is all just passed. And we'll talk to you next time.
All right. Thank you. Thanks again for listening to this episode of the Power Platform Boost podcast. Check out our show notes for links to resources we chatted about on today's episode. And be sure to follow us on your favorite social media platform, except for TikTok, as we are too old to figure it out. Also, be sure to subscribe so you don't miss out on the latest episodes. Hope you'll join us again next time for your boost of Power Platform news.